Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you today from your last level up. I am your host, Martin O'Dwyer, and with me, as always, is your host, Conor O'Brien. Conor, you're level 4. ASI or stat increase? Decide now. ASI or feet? ASI or feet?
Feet, definitely feet.
Yes, because that's what we're talking about today, is feats. Cool. But no, how are you doing?
I figured that was the right answer. I'm doing good. Is it weird that I'm clearly contacting you from heaven? Can you see how bright my bloody room is right now?
Yeah, it's like...
the light is all washed out. It looks like I'm contacting you from the beyond.
For our non video subscribers, Conor currently looks like he's live streaming from the good place.
yeah, exactly. The Micflayers podcast, also available on YouTube,
or possibly also the center of the sun. It's hard to decide.
Yeah, it's just you know what? It's not that actually that bright in this room. It just looks it because of the lights on. Anyway, yes,
it looks like there's a sun exploding above my head every episode, purely because the light is like right up here.
Oh, it's just where the camera cuts out. Yeah.
It's just my insane godly power. No, but I'm good, man. I'm good. I had some wacky shit happen in my D&D session yesterday that I'm so excited to talk about today. But
we both had some good stuff happen.
Oh man, it was a good week for D&D this week.
It was a great week for the D&D parish.
Yeah, damn it, you beat me to the fine day for the parish thing already. God damn it. Cool. Do you wanna start? Because we were talking about this before we recorded it. We both had some like absolutely wacky shit happen. I have to. I'm trying to not swear as early in the podcast because apparently that YouTube will be like, no, bad, and slap you on the wrist for swearing a certain amount of time into the podcast, into an episode.
Oh, okay.
90 seconds. It's only 90 seconds. We're good. We're good. Shit, fuck.
Oh god. So anyway, we both had. You had your own game you run, and obviously you were playing in my game as well. We both had some great D&D sessions this week. I had one I was planning. Basically, you guys, I think I mentioned last week, you guys have decided that you're going to take this other job that I kind of thought, it's there if you want it, but I didn't really think you'd really go for it. And then you have, so I'm like, oh, cool. So I get to kind of come up with a whole bunch of new stuff at this other side of the country. You basically need to travel. Yeah, you have a war wagon. Let's just open with that. You have a war wagon. We've got a wagon / carriage.
It's probably closer to a tank at this stage.
It's a horse-drawn tank. Because basically you had a carriage anyway that he commissioned, and then you fought some ogres, and one of them had a ballista that it wielded like a crossbow, and you killed it. And you said, let's just take this and throw it up and we'll strap it to the roof of the carriage just temporarily. Then you went to a town, went to some people and goes, hey, can you just cover this thing in armor plating, reinforce the structure, and mount that ballista on the roof? And they were like, yeah, of course we can. That's a regular Tuesday. And then you got 2 extra horses because it's a heavy thing now.
Yes.
It weighs about a ton. And there's like hammocks on the inside of it and a bunch of other shit. So you basically had this mobile horse-drawn tank caravan, like a RV kind of thing.
It's very much the medieval fantasy equivalent to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like battle van.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you decided you need to go. So you're like, we're going to take that. We'll take that, even though it's a bit slower than other methods, and we'll travel that way. It's like 8.5 days to get to this place. The first few days, you kind of just got some cold weather, and you fought some undead and stuff like that. I used the weather tables, which I never normally use. That was kind of nice. It kind of I like the randomness of it. I don't often use random tables, but when I do, I like the natural way in which this random thing and this random thing happened, but together they make this whole other thing, and it can be really cool to see the results of that.
I also find describing travel sometimes to be one of the most like annoying and repetitive things you have to do, because you can only describe the hilly green landscape so many different ways.
Yeah, exactly. But when the weather comes in and is changing dramatically, and I got some dramatic rolls on the tables.
Yeah, I started introducing them into my game recently, and I fucking love the weather tools, particularly the Eldritch Storm one that I use for an arc back.
I'm talking about regular snow here.
I use regular weather tables as well. It was just the first ones I used were the evil ones.
Yeah. Start. If you start really, really bad, your players will think you're being nice. Then when you just do regular snowstorm.
If you started fire rain, a hurricane ain't that bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you guys were on the road, and I rolled some cold weather here and there. I had to make some con checks for that. It is the middle of winter.
I was just too hench for the cold.
You did manage to resist it each time, I think. Actually, you were the only one who
plus
rolled
8
really
to
well.
my con save.
There you go. So you guys were traveling along the road. I basically had you fight some undead first of all, which was quite fun because I don't know if I mentioned it in the podcast. Wabu, our turtle barbarian, has not been able to speak for literally like the last 6 sessions because he decided that when you were in the Underdark, he would stick his face into a hell portal. And I didn't have anything prepared, so I looked up the short-term madness tables, and I had him roll, and I basically told him, you don't remember what you saw, but whatever it was, it messed you up. And I had him roll a d10, and he got a 10, and it was a d10 by 10 hours. It's just you're not allowed to speak, or you're unable to speak. Yeah. And I told him it horrified him to the point where he can no longer speak for this long. And he's been timing them down over and over for days and days in game. And he didn't tell you, but he just about got his voice back, and he waited till he was in the fight to use his battle cry, his Zealot Barbarian battle cry. And everyone was like, oh, he can speak again, which was a really, really great moment. And then he absolutely went ham on a bunch of ghouls and just eviscerated them. It was a bloodbath, which was really, really good, though. The fight was good. And then the next day happened, weather took a bit of a turn, it got a bit snowy and stuff. Quite heavy snow, and the temperature dropped quite severely. And then the following day, you camped up for the night, and I had this moment I'd been planning for a while. So you have okay, I'm going to try and make this as short as possible. Basically, you have a spear that was given to you by an archfey, a particularly malicious archfey. She is not a nice person in any sense. But she gave this to you because her whole thing is she only does things if she knows the future, basically. She only does things if she knows that somewhere down the road this will come back to bite you in the ass. So she'll do things purposely because she's like, if I do this little thing or say this one thing to a person, I know that this will just spell tragedy for them somewhere down the road. But you guys recently did some stuff that kind of fucked with reality a little bit.
Just casually fucked with reality.
Just casually fucking with reality. And as a result, you ended up unshackling the dryad presence that is in the spear, and kind of changing what should have happened to you to kind of mess up everything for you. Now is maybe not going to happen, and the fae who gave it to you is pissed off.
Yeah.
I don't know if I explained it to you. I might have just given away some of the.
No, you did. You did not. Like I a lot of that.
I did. Yeah.
Interpreted, or you would directly explain. Yeah.
Oh, whew. I thought I overshared there.
No,
so
please
yeah,
continue.
so that's kind of the gist. And the thing about this particular archfey is that she has these 4 knights. I call them the Retirna Lay, and they're the knights of the day. And there are 4 of them. There is the Moon Knight, there is the Dawn Knight, the Bloom Knight, and the Dusk Knight. And in the middle of the night, literally like 4 or 5 in the morning, pitch black, snow falling, all the noise of the area muffled because of all that the way snow does. And it's perfectly quiet. And Aerith, your blood hunter, is on the roof of the carriage, keeping an eye out. And I tell him he hears a very obvious snapping branch coming from the nearby forest, as well as some heavy footfalls in the snow. So he gets ready, and he tries to warn ye to that, to kind of give you a bit of a signal that there's something about to happen, So he kicks he's sitting on the carriage, so he kicks the side of it with the back of his heel. And even though he feels the contact and he feels the vibration come up through the carriage where he's sitting, there was no sound. And basically what had happened is there was a silence spell cast in the immediate area. So he wasn't able to warn you. And just at that moment when he realized something was up, 3 arrows came out of the darkness. 2 of them hit him, doing some piercing damage and some psychic damage. And he dropped off the side, ran into the back of the cart, hit all you guys. He couldn't shout to wake you up, so he had to hit you all with his hands and wake up, wake up, wake up. Hilariously, after just getting his speech back, Wabu, Mike's character, woke up and found himself unable to speak again, and just dropped to his knees and silently went no.
That
which was
killed
hilarious.
Me. That absolutely killed me. When
I
he did that.
I died. I didn't even think about that, and when he said it, then I absolutely died. But yeah, and then basically you came out and you found you're coming out of the woods. You found these 3 grey, huge hounds with human-like faces and red eyes.
I know what these things are now.
Oh, do you? Or just you realize?
Yeah, I think I do. They're the really ugly dog.
Yeah, right. I forget what book they're in.
It's something hound. I can't remember what it is.
They're called Yeth
hounds.
Y-E-T-H.
They're ugly as sin.
They are, and they're like her attack dogs. So you saw 3 of them, a black unicorn, with a kind of, not just a kind of spiraled straight horn. It's got this like curved scimitar like horn, and a silver mane. And then you saw this knight of jet black and silver armor step out of the forest with a bow in hand. And these guys, to give you a sense of scale on how not a joke these knights are, I used Death Knights as the base stat block when I was creating them.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, so they're absolutely no joke when it comes to how deadly they are. And yeah, that's where we ended the session then, and everyone was like, "Oh, we're fucked." But so I was delighted because I've been kind of waiting to do something with them for a while, and I think I brought them up earlier in the adventure and stuff like that, but didn't really get to play them out massively.
Oh yeah. I took
now we have
massive notes on any time they come up because this is just such a. I love the concept.
I mentioned before how I kind of wanted them. If anyone is familiar with what you call it, the Name of the Wind books, the Kingkiller Chronicles, I should say.
Oh, like the Adem.
No, the Chandrian.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. That's much more.
Duh. Yeah, they're kind of meant to be my Chandrian in my world. They're mostly folklore based. Most people don't think they actually exist, but there are like legends of like towns being burnt to the ground and by a single armored knight, and everyone's like, "Oh, what kind of person would do such a thing?" And then one old man will be like, "It was the Redeer Delay. I promise you, I saw him." And then everyone's like, "Shut up, crazy old man."
Yeah.
So they're kind of a thing, a folklore thing in my world, but obviously they are real, and one of them is coming for you.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I'm so pumped for next session to go straight into a cool combat. Yeah, looking forward to it.
This is going to be one of the sessions where I actually use everything I have, like everything, like all the runes, giant might, everything.
Just first round, burn everything. Let's go and let's charge straight.
It legitimately takes me 4 rounds to activate all of my abilities.
Oh yeah, because you've
they're all bonus actions.
Oh, they're all bonus. Okay,
it's like
rage, giant might,
giant might, then the frost rune, then the lightning, then the storm rune.
Right, yeah.
And then I'm at full power, Kaioken times 10 lug.
Yeah, and then your size large, you're doing additional rage damage. Then you can also action surge to get 4 attacks. Each of the attacks is a spear damage plus 2d6 each because you're fighting some Fae now because the
and if I crit the spear, you get an extra d8 damage as well.
As part of
Piercer.
The Piercer, yeah. Yeah, you got some, beefy like. So but this is it's a fight I was kind of shaping up for a while, so I'm really happy about.
Lug is a physical god, but anything that can affect anyone mentally will just make him a meat puppet.
It's kind of the same with Wabu. So Wabu is a really, really good damage dealing and tanky barbarian, as they should be. But as soon as anything is like mind controlly or anything that has to do with mental fortitude, I think it's kind of the case with a lot of barbarians, but they kind of fall apart very fast.
The day me and Wabu both get mind controlled is the day this campaign ends.
Oh yeah! Oh god, yeah. If ever, I usually only have like maybe one or two spellcasters, but if ever there's a time when they can cast high level mind control on both of you and succeed, and you just turn the 2 of you turn around to the other 2 party members, all they can do is run, and they'll probably get away, to be fair, but all they can do is run and hope for the best you guys do not catch up with them, because they're in trouble if you do.
Dude, we're fast as well.
Well, yeah, you have 40 feet of movement each, like, and then like thing is, if he grapples them, your strength scores are like they both have negative strength scores.
Yeah.
So they'd have virtually no hope of beating you in a contested athletics to break away from you. So
Wabu's got that stone giant belt as well.
I keep forgetting I gave that to him. Yeah. Oh no! What was here's okay. God, we're gonna get really off topic. I'm really sorry. Here's the dumbest fucking thing that happened that session. Right?
I knew this would come up.
The dumbest thing. So Wabu has this sword. Wabu's kind of not exactly a good guy. His morality is very, very grey. And when you guys were underground, you were fighting these cursed elves called Balgwyn. And you went into one of their settlements, and a Balgwyn child stepped out of a hut, basically, and almost saw you. And in order to basically, I thought one of you would grab him and hold his mouth so he doesn't scream or something. But instead of that, Wabu's like, as a 400-pound turtle, Wabu's like, I body slam him, non-lethal. And I'm like, okay, I guess you're probably gonna shatter all his bones or whatever, but fine, non-lethal. So he body slammed his kid. The kid is like 2 hit points, if even. So yeah, he's unconscious now. And then they left him. You left him alone. You made sure he was alive, and then you left him alone. And as a result, this sentient sword, which is basically like one of the Sun Sword, once you get in Curse of Strahd, Out of the Abyss, there's a few different ones, but I basically made one called Dawnheart, and Dawnheart is obviously a very lawful, good sword. So Dawnheart, having seen this, the next time he tried to draw Dawnheart in a fight, the sword would not activate, and she was basically like, Wabu, I'm unimpressed, or I'm unhappy with the way you handled that child. That was it was cruel and it was unnecessary. Blah blah blah. I don't know if I'm comfortable working with you at this time. So that's been going on for a while. Then he lost his voice. Then he couldn't try to make a case for himself because he lost his voice, so he couldn't talk to her. So that went on for a while. He just got his voice back. The first thing he did is he tried to talk to the sword, and he said, "Hey, look, I know we've been kind of on the outs for a little bit. I'd like for us to start working together again." And I'm like, okay, he's going to try and make a case, and I'll have him make a check, like a persuasion check, to try and convince her that he's worth fighting alongside. His speech basically involved him telling her, look, I'm like basically kind of saying, I'm a pretty brutal guy. I feel it's a really kind of really twisted relationship, actually, when you think about it, because he basically told her, look, I'm kind of a shit individual. I'm really cruel and mean.
And she's trying to fix him.
when you're with me, I feel like I'm a better person. And he basically said, it's a good thing you were with me at the time. If you weren't there, I probably would have killed that kid. And I was like, oh God, okay. So I'll let him make the check, but it'll be disadvantage and a high DC. So I was thinking it's got to be plus 20, and he's rolling disadvantage. He rolled 2 18s. 2 fucking 18s. And then I had to turn around and I had to be like, I had to, like, first of all, I stopped everything for a solid 30 seconds, and I was like, how am I even going to justify this? And then me as Dawnheart was like, you know what, Wabu? When you say it like that, it kind of makes sense. Just because I have nothing else. So she's like, yeah, I guess me working with you, and it's such a toxic relationship. Yeah. But he managed to convince her that even though he's terrible, she should keep working with him to make him less terrible.
It's a process. Is basically
so
it is.
Messed up.
Yeah.
And then so he got the use of Dawnheart back, or he got her allegiance back for now. But she did warn him, don't test our friendship again.
Yeah.
Oh God, the 2 18s, like.
I've never seen you more salty, but also like, I have to do it. It's how the rules work.
I asked for a roll, and he rolled bloody high. So he got like a 23 with those 2 18s. And I said, I knew in my head, I'm like, it's going to be a 20 plus, at least a 20 DC is what he's going to need to convince her of this. He got it, so that's the game.
Oh man, sometimes D&D just like, sometimes the game just doesn't care about your feelings, and it goes, no, this is how I want it to go.
yeah. Sometimes it's just like, sometimes a roll will happen, or or sometimes you'll ask for a roll, and I do this. I don't do it often, but it's come up where I'll ask for a roll, fully believing, like, yeah, there's no way he rolled an 18 plus on this check, knowing that maybe that character is bad at it. And the one time when I think to myself, that'll never happen, is the exact time they will roll a natural 20, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta do this thing now that I did not want to or consider doing. But yeah, I guess like you asking me when you were in a gnome settlement in the Underdark, is there like a dog groomers / kennel in this town where I can leave my dog for a while? And I'm like, roll investigation, knowing full well Lug does not have particularly high intelligence. And then you rolled like a 19 or 20, and I'm like, I guess there is the dog groomers in this Underdark gnome settlement.
I was full on expecting you to go, no, but like you could leave him at an inn. And like that was my backup plan for if I couldn't find
that
him.
Would have made more sense.
I was gonna leave Matt an inn to be taken care of. No, okay. So do you want to hear about the far less serious but infinitely weirder shit my party got up to this week and last week?
Yes, please. I will say to the audience. Martin has prefaced this by saying that this is on par or possibly surpassing the story of one of his players polymorphing into a shark to eat a dead body as a way of getting rid of evidence.
yeah. It's honestly, I think thinking about it now in the events that like it's actually definitely both like worse or better depending on your perspective. I consider it better, but it's absolutely like just. We already did an episode on like when your party surprises you, but like I wish this had happened.
Yeah.
Right, so for context, my party are currently investigating what appears to be either a burning or bombing plot that's being carried out on this like Dragonborn Japanese-styled series of floating islands. They accidentally stumbled upon it when my rogue around there pickpocketed a guy at he pickpocketed a guy at a festival to see what was in his pocket, so that then he could change his identity and bet the guy that he knew what he had in his pocket to win gold off him, which worked. But then later on they saw them being shifty and were like, oh, maybe I should steal that scroll that had a seal on it that was in that guy's pocket. So he steals the scroll and the seal, and the scroll has it's basically like a checklist. It's like 6 barrels of black powder, nails, fuses, pitch, tar, like ropes, chains, and they're all crossed off.
Right.
It's like an itinerary of stuff, and that's what I mean. Like, my rogue looked at it and he was like, looking at this, could I discern what this could possibly be made of? Or like, cause like he basically went, I think this is a bomb. Could a bomb be made from this? And I was like, well, you were a pirate and you have also been trained in gunsmithing and dealing with black powder weapons. So I would say like, yeah, with your knowledge, I think I'd have made a check, but it was like a medium difficulty check because very much in that kind of a wheelhouse. And I was like, yeah. This is you're not certain, but like you could make a bomb from these ingredients. Yeah. They were like, oh shit, okay. So they go in and start looking into it more, and then they decide what they're going to do is they're going to scry on the group that they pickpocketed from the previous day because they have met them in person. So the DC will be well lower. Yeah. But even if they've just heard of them, they can still do it as well. It's just a higher DC, or the person that's more for booster safe. So they scry on these guys. And they find them in the western branch of the hot springs that they're staying in the center of town. There's it's like a main family run this one, and the branch family to the one that run the hot springs in town run one at the western edge of the island, which is like where you'd go up to go to the second or third island from the waterfalls. So they were like, okay, they're there, and they see them all arguing, and my druid sees them all arguing about who's lost the itinerary form, and like this letter, the scroll that's supposed to be delivered to secure. So the session kind of ends there. Next session, they're like, okay, we're going to the hot springs, the onsen. They get there, they sneak around for a little bit first to try and see if there's anything weird or fishy going on, which just ended up in my rogue very expertly stealthing around what looked like a very, very normal hot spring sauna inn kind of thing. Eventually they go in, they decide they'll hang around there for a while, but Mandroy, my druid Mike, he decides that to have a convincing in with the owners here, he's going to hurl himself onto the ground and scream going, my ankle, my shin, my ankle, my shin. And eventually people hear this from inside. The owner of the onsen comes out. It's this green scaled dragonborn called Shizune, She greets them, brings them in as like, here, I'm not a doctor, but we have some medical supplies here. We can have a look at your friend's things. You guys can rest if you're travelers, that kind of. They come in. She treats his ankle, going like, it doesn't really feel that there's much wrong here. He's like, no, you've done a great job. And eventually she's just like, okay, look, if you need anything, I'll be in the office here. Heads off. They decide to investigate the hot springs and go down there. So 3 of them go down there, and my rogue Arander stays inside to fix his gun, which he rolled a 1 on in a previous session,
right.
And so busted, and he's not a high enough level to just fix it with an action yet, so he has to take time. So he decides, I'm going to take time, fix my gun, while you guys go and scope out the hot springs and talk to people. So my party talked to a couple of people. They all seem very normal, kind of friendly, if a bit weirded out by people coming up to them naked in a hot spring, being like, hey, tell me everything about this place.
Yeah, when you're sitting in like a jacuzzi or a hot spring, other people's genitals are just about at head height. It's not exactly ideal.
Yeah. It was an interesting one to role play, seeing like how would people approach having a stranger come up to them when they're like bathing naked, being like, hey, how are you? Tell me all about yourself and whether you're evil.
Yeah.
You know, but while they're out there, they're gathered some good info though about the town and the area and stuff, and some other worldly info too. But while they're doing that, my rogue, my gunslinger rogue, who's in fixing his gun, finally fixes the gun, takes a break, but just catches sight of one of the Dragonborn from the previous night. Specifically the guy he pickpocketed, is staying in the same hot springs. So he's staying in a room across the hall. So they're like, oh, excellent. Everyone regroups. They're like, okay, we're gonna do some surveillance here. We're gonna stake out his room, and we're gonna keep an eye out. We're gonna try and see what's going on here. So okay, cool. So they keep an eye out in his room. Eventually, the guy leaves. They're like, go. Druid wild shapes into a mouse, goes under the door, wild shapes back out of a mouse, and because they're a shoji door, so he just nibbles a hole through the paper.
Nice.
And he goes through. Reforms into his druid self and starts looking all around. Can't really find anything. Eventually the sorcerer also gets polymorphs in, comes in as well, and the two of them are looking around. They roll really bad investigation checks though, so they find fucking jack shit. They're just like looking through this. I was like, you find a lot of underwear, like just looking through. And eventually this guy comes back, but thankfully my rogue around there and my bloodhunter Thurston were both keeping watch, keeping sketch, so they come back. And my rogue, just his plan to distract this guy is to run up, put on a really high-pitched American accent and be like, oh my god, are you enjoying the festival? How are you? I love this country. I've never been here before. Tell me everything about it. And just like distracting that guy like that. And he's keeping him quiet. Meanwhile the others can hear this guy out there and they know. And I can't remember if they had like a code word or something, but eventually they're like, oh shit, we have to get out. So what they do is, same again, wild shape into a mouse, nibbles a hole through the back door, and goes out. Then looks in, polymorphs the sorcerer into a mouse. She gets out as well. Just as your man's like, right, I've had enough of you. I'm going to go into my room now. He literally opens the door and has it opened, and my rogue just like slams his hand on the door and is like, no, really, I'm having such a great time here. Right, so it gives them just enough time to get out. The two of them get out the side and they're like, holy shit, we nearly get caught. Your man goes back into his room, door closes, everyone regroups and is like, we found nothing, we don't know what's going on. And they're like, okay, plan B, we're going to interrogate this guy. And I was like, right, how are you going to interrogate this guy? What is your plan? I was like, are you just going to go into his room? What are you doing? And they're kind of going back and forth until they eventually settle on a plan. And I'm going to leave the plan out for the sake of the story because it's too fucking weird and it's too funny, right? So they all gather up in the hallway near outside this guy's room, and they're like, okay, on the count of 3 we're gonna go. Mandroid, Druid, you go first. You go with I believe it was around near the rogue, into the room. Right, it's like, and then boom, that's where we start the plan. Right, okay, like 3, 2, 1. Mandroid rips the door open, walks inside. I said the guy is literally like putting something into his bag and looks up like, huh? And then the two of them burst into the room, close the door behind them. Mandroid immediately casts polymorph on the guy, turns him into a sloth. Because it's really slow and can't attack. Right? Turns him into a sloth. I'm like, okay, he's a sloth. What are you going to do? And he's like, right, we take the sloth and we're going to sneak him out of here and we're going to go a couple miles down the road on our horses and we're going to interrogate him in the field. And I was like, okay. So I was like, how do you propose to smuggle the sloth out of this inn without attention? Sloths are quite large. And they're like, okay. And so my rogue gets him and he holds the sloth like that, turns him around so he's like, his claws are facing in on him like that, and puts him on like a reverse backpack
I was going to suggest that they look like backpacks.
Right, but like puts him on like a like on here, right, and then just pulls he wears a big duster. He just pulls the duster closed over him and crosses his arms, and then walks out. So I was like, okay, roll a stealth check. But he has like 1,000,000 stealth. He rolled like a 30 or something. So I was like, yeah, all of you guys, just it happens so fast. There's no real noise. He literally went, huh, and then turned into a sloth that doesn't really make much noise. And then you just carried him out. So they fucking carry him out of the onsen. They jump on their horses, ride down the road all the way down, go down to this like one lane that kind of leads into a field. So they bring him there, hop a fence, put him down there, and they put him down. They put the sloth down in the middle of the field. And I was like, right, what's your plan for the interrogation? And they're like, right, when he turns back, we don't want him like running away or anything like that, or fighting us. So what we'll do is we'll tie him up. And I was like, you're going to tie up the sloth? It's like, yeah, we're going to tie up the sloth. I was like, okay, right. So make a check. And I was like, right, if they're tied the sloth up tightly and then end the polymorph, those knots are going to need to make a check to stay bound, because the size increased from sloth to full grown dragonborn. Yeah. But then Randall the rogue was like, oh no, he's going to change back. Can I tie the knots in such a way that when he goes to human size, that they're like tighten on him like a slip knot almost? I was like,
so that they're loose on the slot, but they fill out once he gets
exactly.
bigger.
I was like, you're a sailor, so you've experienced this. How to make a check. I'd use the knot tying rules. He made it easy. So they do it, and then they go, okay, right, drop the polymorph. The guy turns back into a dragonborn. The rope's cinched tight around him, and they start interrogating him. And he's like, what the fuck is going on? And then they eventually start getting to threatening him and trying to like get info out of him. At which point he like looks at them. His eyes change color to like a really pale yellow with just a single black dot in his eyeball. And he's like, voice gets all grabbed. He's like, you don't know who you're messing with. And then he grows to a size large as the Oni they've accidentally kidnapped.
Oh wow.
Comes out, and that's where I ended that session. Was they like the Oni came out, summoned the big two-handed glaive, and they were like, oh shit. But like they actually made it like I had half planned for the fight in the thing, so there were other monsters in there. That would have joined the fight, that would have made it harder, but they like, it was just so beautiful when they were like, okay, and then he's like, oh, they're like, what are you gonna do? And he just like turns into this giant blue skinned ogre demon giant with a huge glaive. So that's where I ended that session. Next session starts, we go through the fight, and they make fairly short work of him. It's only an Oni, and they're all like level 11, and they're
at that level 4 characters should be able to make pretty quick work for an Oni.
I think he got a cone of cold off, and then I think he survived for like another 2, maybe 3 rounds, but they massacred him. Right, now's when it gets weird.
Okay.
This is where it tops the heist story, right? Because not only did they accidentally kidnap an Oni, but the heist story is where this completely goes over it, right? So they kill the Oni. And then they're like, right, what do we do? Sorcerer starts collecting monster bits for potions, magic items, whatever. Oh, good, yeah. And I'm like, right, so the Oni's dead. They find he tells them over the course of that whole interrogation thing. They have an idea of where certain things are going on. They know there's a cave where they might to the north where there might be some smuggling going on, and that's what they want to interrogate him about. But he's dead now, and they can't really interrogate him. None of them have speak with dead. So they're like, shit. And then Mandroy, my druid, just comes out with, I think, easily the most batshit insane plan I've ever heard that involved a 500 gold piece diamond.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Is he going to revive him?
He goes, I have raised dead today. What if, while he's still dead, we hack off all his limbs, so he's just a torso and a head, and then we put him on the floor in the field. We all stand around him. I'll cast Raise Dead. He'll come back. Raise Dead closes all of his wounds, but it doesn't regrow back limbs. He'll be totally fine, but he won't be able to hurt us. And I was like, wow, that's dark. Like in my head.
That is
right.
Yeah. Okay.
So the rest of the party are like, yeah, let's do it, and so start hacking off all this guy's limbs.
Okay,
right?
I would just like to point out that, for the sake of the audience, the player in Martin's game who is playing this druid that suggested this is the same player who's in a toxic relationship with a sentient sword in my campaign, and I'm starting to question my friendship with him now. Like, maybe we should get him checked.
Right. So they hack off all the limbs, cast Raise Dead, but the Raise Dead says the spirit has to be willing. So, fucking, this is why you love this. So he goes, alright, make a persuasion check. He's a druid, he doesn't have great charisma. Make a persuasion check to convince this Oni to come back. And he speaks giant as well, so he starts laying down all these giant runes for the ritual. He rolls a fucking 18, Conor.
Oh no.
Yeah. He rolled a fucking 18. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, you convince the soul to come back. He'll come back to life, but that doesn't mean he's going to be on their side. So right, the entire time they're doing this, I'm like, okay, what can the Oni do? If they take off all his limbs, he's a spellcaster, so he might have something he can do. What can the Oni do? Go through it. I look at his spells. He's got Cone of Cold, VSM. He's got Invisibility, VSM. He's got Charm Person, VSM. He's got Sleep, VSM. The only thing he has that doesn't require somatic components is Darkness. So I was like, right, he's going to come back. He's going to keep him talking till he can regen some health, because he's an Oni. He regens every 10 health every time it's his turn.
Right.
He's going to read, and then he's just going to try and he's going to cast Darkness, and he's going to try and fucking crawl away on his nubbins. That's all he's going to. It's all he can do. It's all I can do realistically, because they're going through with this, so I have to play it out. So they bring him back anyway, and they intimidate him. They do a pretty good job of it as well. But like, he's the whole time he's just trying to keep them talking so he can heal more. Then one of my characters decides they're going to check if the Oni is being controlled by anything. So they put down this magic item called the Balance of Harmony. And it's basically like a magical way scales that you can put 2 equal, I think it's 10 silver piece gems on the thing, or holy water. And then it will cast Detect Good and Evil. Okay. So she decides to cast Detect Good and Evil for it. And I'm like, Morrigan, just so you know, cast and Detect Good and Evil takes 10 minutes. And she's like, yeah, cool, no bother. Over 10 minutes, an Oni can regenerate 1,000 HP.
Right.
Yeah. So she's there casting Detect Good and Evil. I was like, the Oni is not controlled by anything. And I would say as well, because you made an Arcana check earlier, you know, and I literally read the first paragraph of the Oni's description page, where it's like, da-da-da-da, and they especially like to eat human babies. And she's like, okay, evil. Gotcha. Evil. And I'm like, yeah. Right. Cool. And then the Oni's like, okay, do you know what? I'm in a bad situation here. If you prop me up against something so I could at least talk to you like a person, and I'll tell you what you need to know, because I'm not getting out here. I recognize that now. And like, okay. And just in case, I rolled a deception check and he had like a 28.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So they prop him up. He continues to keep them talking, and I'm like, yeah, he's got full health now, 110 hit points all back, and keeps them talking, and like, okay, he's going to go for the Darkness on the next turn. And then Mandroid the Druid asks him a question. He responds back. I roll again. I roll the 28 again. I was like, oh, nice one, because I know Mandroid's got really good insight because he's a Druid.
Because Druid, yeah.
Crits on the insight check, 28. I was like, Mandroid, he is full of shit. And I'm like, oh my god. And he goes from same time Darkness expands into this 20-foot area. And everyone's like, oh shit, what's going on? Except for my sorcerer, he goes, can I counterspell that? And I was like, yeah, you could, yeah. She goes, immediately snuffs it out, because dark
level spell, yep.
Yeah, immediately snuffs it out. So the Oni is then like on the ground, crawling away, looking up, and they're just like, oh shit. They tie him up again, they beat the shit out of him.
Oh no, yeah. I fell down, help me out.
At which point I tell him he has all of his health again, but he has no means to attack them. They try to interrogate him again, but he won't break because he's much more scared of his boss than them. And right. Eventually he like threatens them and is like, you know who I work for, like wherever you go, people will be following you. You'll hear a footstep behind you, it'll be a knife in your back. You look behind you to check if there's someone following you, and someone else is going to jump on you from the shadows. You will never be safe. And then my rogue did this big whole monologue about, I've been a pirate, I've been the fucked up person in the darkness, I know what you're coming after, and you don't scare me. And he just shoots him in the head.
Metal.
Yeah. But your man did go. The Oni was like, send me on my way, do it.
Yeah. That is. Oh God, Mike. That is the kind of thinking that I pretty much only expect from Mike, having played with Mike for many years now. This is the kind of out of the box, while also borderline sociopathic behavior I expect from Mike.
Yeah, they're all good aligned characters, by the way. Everyone in my party is good aligned. From lawful to chaotic is the spread. Lawful to chaotic neutral.
That might be in question now.
It was an Oni, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know. Debatable. Either way, that's a super messed up story, and yes, that does actually. That probably does top the shark body disposal.
Like, I honestly didn't think it could get any weirder than my party accidentally kidnapping an Oni, but here we are.
I thought when you said that, it turns out this guy was an Oni, I thought that was the twist.
Oh, I did as well, and then I played the rest of the session.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that's just two stories that both of us had that we were like, we have to share these in the podcast because it's too weird.
it was Mike, Mike and his goddamn 18s.
Agent of Chaos, man, complete agent of chaos. But anyway, I suppose we should actually talk about what we're here today to actually talk about. 40 minutes into the show.
I know, right?
which is Feats.
Yeah.
And so straight off, what do you actually think about Feats, Conor? Like, I'm a big fan of Feats. I pretty much always use them and let my players use them. I know you tend to let us use them, but like in general, what do you think of them?
I think I'm kind of a fan of anything that lets a player, or even a DM, if you want to be a DM and give a feat to a monster, by all means. But I'm a fan of anything that lets a player have more control, or more choices in crafting their character, more pieces you can put together. It's why I'm such a big fan of warlocks, because warlocks get their warlock patron, their invocations, their pact type, whether it's chain, tome, blade,
their patron type as well.
Patron as well is level 1, and then like for warlocks, I've always said it, in the first 4 levels of warlock you choose your patron, your invocations, your pact type, and on 4th level you get either an ASI or a feat. Two people could pick the same warlock patron but end up with wildly different characters by level 4 based on the feats that they take. Totally. So I that's what I love about the class. You end up with such different things as a result, and for that reason I really, really like feats. I think they add a lot more flavor. I think there's some feats that are maybe a little bit OP, or not even OP, just overused, I think. And I think that there's some that are really, really cool. I think there's some that are really underutilized as well, though. I think, like, I often think about the healer feat, just because early game, that's a really cool feat to be able to take. The thing, like, it's like being a field medic or something like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, definitely. Like, not all feats were created equal. Like, and like some of them do just have different purposes as well. Like the actor feat, and let's say like heavily armored or heavy armor master. Like, those have two very different purposes. One is a roleplay feat. One is like a combat feat, essentially.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But like, I think you can like kind of split a lot of them like that. But in general, I would follow along the same lines as you. I consider anything that is at least seems to be balanced and offers like further like customization and ways to like fully execute like the concept or the character or like the fantasy that you have for the character that you want to play out in D&D. Anything that lets you get closer to that original vision you had, because like I think we've all been there where like I have such a cool idea for a D&D character, and then you go to make it like, oh, okay, I have to compromise a little bit here and I have to compromise a little bit here, and like a lot of the time what that does do is kind of inherently force you to make a little bit of a more unique character than you probably were thinking. But yeah, I think like the better way to do it is probably having like the options there to let you fully go down the rabbit hole and proper crazy customize your character.
Yeah, and like feats, it is worth noting, feats are technically an optional rule.
Yeah, you don't have to use them.
I think loads of people, pretty much most people, I think, treat them as if they're baseline rules in the game. They are not. Feats are an optional rule. So if you know, don't ever give your dungeon master shtick if he turns around, or he or she turns around and says I don't want to use feats this campaign, so you guys can just use ASIs. Because there's nothing wrong with bumping up your ASIs throughout the campaign, ending up with a couple, like 1 or 2 20s and a couple 16s or something like that. Trust me, you will not be disappointed by it.
I suppose that is the divergence though. Is like, do you want to be more stat bally, or do you want to have like essentially like a special ability you can use either like once a round or once a day or once a short rest?
Exactly, yeah. And I think, like I said, some of them are really, some of them are almost,
some of them are straight up broken. Like,
some of those are straight broken. Some of them I think are completely and utterly like necessary in some like I would never feasibly see myself playing a crossbow character of any kind if I didn't have the crossbow X with feet, because the loading property, I get why it is the way it is, but like if you play a fighter, for example, you want to be a crossbow wielding fighter,
hell yeah.
you know, high dex, and you play up to level 20 as a champion or anything like that, that's completely and utterly broken if you're using a heavy crossbow, D10, nice dice, but technically you can only fire that crossbow once a round because you're because you even if you yeah, exactly, the loading action, and like you only have but you have like 5 attacks you should be able to do, but you can only do that once. You would need the feat, and I don't like that some things are almost gate kept by the necessity of having these feats, you know.
Yeah, I get you.
There are some that are not quite 100% requirements, but I think are again, if you're playing a certain type of character, I don't see why you wouldn't pick them. There's kind of 3 that come to mind, and they are dual wielder, sharpshooter, and warcaster. If you're
I would put Great
playing
Weapon
with
Master
2
up
weapons,
there as well.
Great Weapon Master as well, yeah. I mean, if you're playing with 2 weapons, why wouldn't you pick dual wielder? Bonus your AC, getting to carry 2 long swords or 2 rapiers instead of just 2 daggers, 2 short swords. It's an absolute no-brainer to pick that feat, and it's kind of, in a way, I don't like it. It's almost too good. It's too necessary or too obvious. It's like when I don't know, you play like Call of Duty or something like that, and everyone ends up picking the MP7 because the MP7's the hands down best of machine gun, so everyone ends up using it. And I'm like, that's nice that there's a good gun, but I think there should be more balance throughout the system or whatever, where that's a good one to pick, but it has this down. Everything should have bonuses and downsides to them, and that, you know, dual wielder is just one of those ones. If you're playing 2-handed, 2 weapons, I don't see why you would never pick that.
I can totally see what you're saying there as well, because I think like even in ones you mentioned, like sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master, like if you're playing an archer character, why wouldn't
it gives you,
why wouldn't you,
whatever,
like,
about the minus 5 to get extra 10 damage, right? When you take that, you ignore all 1/2 and 3/4 cover.
Yeah, that
means you never have to worry. As long as you can see a sliver of the top of the head of the person you're shooting at,
that's enough.
You roll and they don't get any bonus. Like it's a very, very good feat. And the same with Warcaster. Like being able to have advantage on every single con check you make is huge. Even if you're not a particularly violent, like you're not a war wizard, you're not someone who's, you know, like an evoker wizard or something like that. Maybe you're like I don't know, maybe like a cleric, and you might be all about healing people and stuff like that. But there's also spells that, like, you know, need concentration that are not necessarily there might be buffing spells, or there might be spells that do healing over time or something like that. It makes no sense why you wouldn't pick Warcaster, because again, advantage on con checks. At some point in every D&D campaign, you're going to get to a fight. There'll be a fight at some point, and you're going to want to be, if you're a spellcaster, you're going to I can't speak. You're going to want to be able to keep concentration on your spells when you get hit.
You can't speak.
I can't speak.
Never mind. It's something that made me laugh when I broke the flow, so please continue.
Oh, okay, sorry. I missed a beat. I usually do this. I miss a lot of your beats. You'll say, that's funny because of this, and I'm like, what?
Sorry, it's just how my brain works.
Yeah. But yeah, so those, like, I like them, and I do think they're really cool feats. I thought there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking them, but I do feel like they're so essential in a lot of ways. It's like there's zero reason why you would not take one of these feats, you know?
Yeah. Like I have a very similar opinion about that. I think it's very reflective as well of the issue with spellcasters too, where you hit 3rd level. Like you have you get your 3rd level spellcasting, both fireball and counterspell are 3rd level spells. So like why, like it's like objectively, like why wouldn't you take counterball and firespell? Why wouldn't you take counterspell and fireball? Because if you don't take counterspell and fireball and you come across a 3rd level mage, they're probably going to have counterspell and fireball. So even though you've taken whatever cool ice spell and stuff, like the game inherently is almost like punishing you because counterspell and fireball are so good. And it's kind of similar with sharpshooter, warcaster, Great Weapon Master, because Great Weapon Master, Dual Wielder, but like Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter are just ranged and melee counterparts to each other.
Yeah, to each other, exactly. Yeah. And they're just so. Yeah, I feel like they're so essential to being good at either range or melee, or with 2 weapons, or with spells. It's like there's no reason why you wouldn't take.
If you are using
nothing wrong with them, they're all great.
Yeah, if you're a high strength character with a 2-handed weapon, like why wouldn't you take Great Weapon Master? It's literally made for you.
Exactly. Another couple I take issue. I say I take issue with. They're good things. I just feel like these 2 in particular are usable by literally everybody. There's no one class that is better or worse for taking any of these, and that's what I kind of don't like about them. And people will take. I feel like people take them strictly for mechanical reasons.
Okay.
I feel like no one is taking one of these. So the 2 feats are lucky and tough.
I knew.
Right? No one and their grandmother, right, is taking lucky because, oh, well, my character had an upbringing where I survived on the streets, and I'm just particularly... No, there's nothing... You take it because you want to reroll dice, okay? And tough, no one is like, well, I grew up... I've been a soldier my whole life, so I'm pretty tough, and I'm able to handle myself on the battlefield. No, don't even try and fight me on this. Don't even try and defend that.
That's literally... You're literally my character. You just literally described my character.
I am, and I'm saying it's still not justified. Right? It's like you take it because you want more points, you want more hit points. That's why you take tough. And the thing is, it can be someone like a barbarian who is obviously, it makes sense to take something like tough. Again, these are 2 really, really good feats.
Yeah.
It's just that I feel like people only take them because they want this hard mechanical bonus. Someone takes, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other one. Someone takes healer, for example. Right? I really like healer. Someone takes healer. That could be showing that they have a medicine background or a healing background, right? Someone takes lucky. I'm like, you do not have like a part of like, oh, I almost died this one time, but I didn't, and then I nearly lost this thing, but then I didn't, and I'm good at gambling. No, you just want to reroll dice.
See, I think I can fairly quickly come up with a good character reason for why you would take lucky. Because if you play a variant human, you can.
You absolutely can. What I'm saying is no one is doing it for character reasons.
But no one ever takes any feat for anything other than, like, it can be a character reason, but it's a mechanical benefit that fits in with your character. Also, you have to be conscious of the fact that each of these feats really should be worth giving up an ASI, which is either a +2 or a +1. So there is, like, that's one thing I want to say was, like, there is a level of power I think a feat needs in order to be worth trading off your ASI.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. But, like just
also for anyone who doesn't know, it means ASI means ability score increase. I realize I've been saying that the entire time. I'm so sorry.
To my point, what I'm trying to say is, yes, I think there is a mechanical and roleplay benefit to pretty much all feats. I think these 2 are the 2. Like you can take, like for example, actor. You mentioned actor a while ago. Actor gives you an advantage on deception and performance checks to pretend to be someone else. If you're like a rogue with high charisma and stuff, why wouldn't you take that to get advantage on every single check where you show up or you're caught somewhere you're not meant to be, and you're like, oh, I'm the health inspector. I'm here to inspect your health.
Potato man.
Where the hell have you been? But yeah, like why wouldn't you take that? But that could be like, I feel like there's more role play and character weight to a feat like actor, where it's like, oh, you're like theater trained. That makes sense, you literally have a training in that. But I feel like lucky is really hard to quantify as a again, unless you have some very specific things where like I survived this and I shouldn't have, or I won this rich fortune and I shouldn't have in a bet or something like that. You can quantify it. I just feel like people don't pick it because the character I'm making is particularly lucky, or the character I'm making is particularly tough. I feel like of the feats, those 2 are the ones that can be used by literally every class. Any class can take them. Particularly tough. Tough is great for barbarians. A wizard doesn't have a lot of hit points. A wizard could totally use tough as well, So you could do either of the. You can work with any class, and also I just feel like it has the least amount of role play weight behind it, and it's like an 80. No, it's like a 5% to 95% split in favor of mechanical benefit as opposed to role play benefit. Whereas I feel like every other feat has varying degrees of split. That's just my opinion. feel free to disagree with me.
If you're wondering why Conor is particularly hard on tough at the moment, it's because I have 111 hit points and haven't taken tough.
Wait, you haven't taken it yet.
No.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with the amount of hit points you have. I have no problem with the amount of hit points you have. I'm just saying, I feel like these two are like, in my head, these are hard mechanical benefits that anyone takes when they feel like they're not rolling well. I'll take lucky. When you feel like you don't have enough hit points, you take tough. And I don't feel like you do it because, not that you, I'm not calling you up, but I don't feel like people do it because, again, the character they made is a really good gambler, so lucky kind of makes sense. Or the character they're making.
But if someone made a gambler character and then they eventually took lucky, would you still look at it the same way?
No, because
like
especially if they were like,
if someone made Gambit and they take lucky.
No, absolutely not. Because again, Gambit for me that plays in. I feel like it fits with the character. And again, I know that when it comes to customizing characters mechanically, feats are really great, and they don't always. I'm not saying feats have to be roleplay based, but I like when like you took a feat at level 1, you're playing human variant.
Spearmaster.
You took a feat at level 1 for Spearmaster, but that plays into your character because your plan is specifically the spear wielding plan. If anyone's ever read the Outsiders War Green Arrow comics, it's kind of a similar thing with the shield clan and the spear clan and an axe clan and stuff like that. And your clan is specifically that, but that's why I like that, because it plays into who your character is. You are the spear guy. That's your whole. That's a huge part of who your character is that you are like spear and shield, Spartan style, Kukulkan warrior. And but it plays into it. I would never tell anyone you can't pick this because I don't feel like it has enough roleplay weight to your character. Pick whatever feats you want. I'm just saying these two feats, and I still allow them in my game just fine. But these two feats, in my view, are the ones that most people pick purely because of the mechanical benefit, not so much because it has anything evocative about their character.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in large part on that, totally. I think
you should agree with me in all part.
Yeah, I don't know, like I think a case can be made for both of those, but yes, in general, I would I don't.
Yeah,
I speaking generally isn't a thing you should really do, but in general, I think tough and lucky are two ones that are pretty much always taken, just because I want more HP. Or I want to be able to reroll.
You should speak generally if you are a general. But I just comedy drummed myself. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That'll be all. Good night.
God. Right. So, do you have some favorite feats of yours? Like ones that you would pretty much either always take or are always on your mind? Depend whatever character you're making. Because I have a couple.
Yeah, but I have some here that I think are, like I said, those dual wielder sharpshooter warcaster, heavy, not heavy, what's it? Great Weapon Master. Yeah. I think they're like 4 fairly quintessential ones because I think they capture a lot of styles of play. Yeah. Well, depending on the weapons or spells you're using, they can capture.
Those are all from PHB as well, aren't they?
Yes, exactly.
So like they're early on enough into the design process of 5e where they're still kind of like they've built it, but they're obviously not as experienced with it as they would be say in Ashes. And like I think that's why these are like obviously. I think that kind of explains why stuff like Great Weapon Master, Sharpshooter, Dual Wielder, those kind of things, where they're like, we need something for X archetype. We need something for X archetype, and they're just sticking that in because there's only one book when they're making them. I think now.
And when you're kind of playing with such, when you're still kind of designing the game at that base level, it's understandable that these feats would become so quintessential to the experience.
They're just trying to fill out archetypes.
They just slot in with the overall game. Yeah. And there's a couple. There's 4 I have written here. I won't get into all of them, but there's 4 I have written here which I think are fairly underrated, which I really like.
Ooh, go on.
There's and you'll love this one because we've seen it in action. Heavy Armor Master.
Yes. Oh my God.
We played
Velasquez, the living tank.
we played with a Paladin fighter Dragonborn who took this, and we once watched him in a single round circle a group of enemies, take 5 opportunity attacks. He had 21 armor class or something like that.
I think it was like 23 because he was Paladin at the time, so he's Shield of Faith himself.
He had Shield of Faith. Yeah, and like the DM was like, I mean, if you move around the entire circle, you'll take like 5 or 6 opportunity attacks. He's like, yeah. He just didn't give a shit. And he took them all, and a lot of them missed him again because he's super high AC. But then the ones that even hit him was like, cool, so that was all reduced by 3, by 3, by 3, by 3. And 3 points of damage.
And he was a bard as well. He was a bard. There was a multi-class. He was a bard paladin.
I thought he was a fighter.
No, sorry,
paladin.
he was a fighter paladin. Yeah, sorry, he was a fighter. Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, still, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that 3 points may not seem like a lot, but when you're taking multiple hits in a round, I mean, even just to take 3 hits in a round, that's 9 points of health you've saved yourself. Like, that's bloody huge. Imagine, like, again, just it's a really heavy armor master, really, really cool. And ritual caster. If you want to be a magic user, but not necessarily be a strict magic user, take that. I mean, like, I was looking at the spells you get as a wizard earlier on, just to get the ones you get, like, if you wanted to have ones that are ritual tag, just kind of looking at first level.
Identify straight away.
Identify and detect magic are just take those two, and like you're so sorted. Whenever you encounter, you basically have a manual of find out what magic does.
Yeah.
And you have all the answers in this book with just 2 ritual spells. So you get alarm, comprehend languages, detect magic, find familiar, tensor's floating disc, identify illusionary script, unseen servant, gentle repose, magic mouth. Sorry, I'm not getting this. Gentle repose onward is second level, but even just then, that's a handful of really cool,
totally,
a really cool first level spells, and you can get higher level spells as well, as long as it's equal to, I believe it's like half your, equal to your half your level rounded down is the level of spell you can inscribe into this book.
That's really cool. Like, that's so cool.
It's really good. There's also Shield Master.
Yeah.
I feel like Shield Master just doesn't get enough.
I'm not a big fan.
Oh really?
No, I don't think it's worth I don't think it's worth your points.
I could see myself building a cavalier fighter, because they already get some stuff where they can block damage and stuff like that.
Their marking thing is really cool.
Yeah, so I could see myself doing that, taking this and just being maybe even like multi-classing into spirit barbarian like yours. So you just have everything you can do to block your allies and just become that, like, you're the frontline vanguard and you're taking the hits, but it's fine. Take heavy armor master as well, shrug off the damage you do absorb, you know. So you can basically use a bonus action to shove someone with the shield. You can add the shield AC bonus depending. So if you have magic shield, it's good. That's not just 2. So if you have a magic shield, and if you're the shield guy, maybe your DM will be good to you and give you a magic shield at some point. We won't talk about your fucking +5 shield from campaign 1. Let's not get into that.
Maybe it'll be the size of a bank vault door and sing like giants on the tail.
You can also, so you add it to a dexterity saving throw for a spell or the harmful effect, and then that targets only you. That's an interesting one. That would not work in Fireball, so it's a little bit limited there.
Yeah, that's where it falls down for me.
Yeah, it would have been good if it was just, because I whenever I picture that, using your shield like that, I picture that scene in Avengers 1 where Cap is in the bank and he kills those guys, but the grenade drops and he runs to the window, jumps, tucks into a ball behind the shield, and the blast hits the shield but forces him out the window. That's what I picture every time I picture this ability.
I think so,
and then, like, you get to, what's it, effect that allows you to make dexterity saving throw. Oh yeah, you get half damage. You basically get an evasion as long as you're wielding a shield. If you use a reaction, you can get the evasion effect. That's also brilliant as well. That would work for something like Fireball.
Yeah, totally.
So I really, really love. I think it's cool. I think it's very flavorful. Again, if you're,
I think I might have been thinking of a slightly different. I think I might have been thinking of like the protection fighting style. When I said I didn't like.
Oh
it.
Yeah, that's I can't remember.
That's
how it goes,
dog shit. That's dog shit. Do not take that.
Like,
that is a bait.
It's like a reaction. You can like impose disadvantage to an ally or something like that.
I don't.
Or to someone attacking an ally within 5 feet.
I don't even know. I don't even think it's that good. Oh no, it is. That's it. Yeah, but like still, it's like it's not worth it. You could do the same thing and take Sentinel and get like.
Yeah, true. And get to attack them rather than just disadvantage. Yeah, I get you. Yeah. But I mean, I personally like it. Again, maybe it's just the Captain America vibes for me.
No, I'm a big Cap fan. I think I was literally just thinking of a different thing where I think I'd taken protection before and didn't like it a lot. So that's just like me.
And then the fourth one is healer, and I just like healer because again, there's something kind of charming about that. Like, even in a world of paladins and clerics, there's something kind of charming about the person who runs over with a medicine bag and you're trying to heal someone. The extra HP you can get out of it, the stabilizing someone and giving them back hit points is really cool. I've often wanted to build a doctor character who is not a cleric and is not a paladin, but they're just trained in medicine, so they're a little like a trauma surgeon, like, you know. And I would definitely take that if I was to do it. Again, that's to go back to my argument earlier. That's just again more in the vein of roleplay than strict help, because early on that's a pretty cool ability. Late campaign, it's probably not the most beneficial. You're probably better off being a cleric and casting a 4th level cure wounds. But I just like the feel of it. It builds into what I think would be a cool character. There is one from the PHP that I do not like outright. Martial Adept.
Really?
It bugs me for a couple of reasons, right? So let me just bring it up here. First of all, it's not flush, or it does not meld well with Battlemaster.
I think that's intentional, though, not to step on the Battlemaster's toes.
Well, yeah, here's the thing, though, right? Here the way it works is you get 2 maneuvers on the Battlemaster list. That's pretty cool, right? You get 2 moves you can do. You get access to 1 superiority dice.
Yeah, that's
superiority dice.
That's pretty shitty.
If you could, even if they said you have 2, then I have a choice of doing 1 of them each or 1 of them twice, and that would be enough.
Because that's what you've given me this game.
I've even given you a buffed out version. I gave you
more. Totally.
Yeah. Because again, I feel like the feat has good roots, but I just feel like that single use when they go, if I go to you, here's Martin, here's 2 lollipops and you can eat 1 of them. Like, what's the fucking point, you know?
Yeah.
So that just bugs me. I get what you're saying. You don't want to be giving people too many superiority dice if they're not a battle master, because that's very strictly the battle master's deal.
I wouldn't have a problem with giving the 2. I actually, in my head it was 2, because I have 2. I assume that's what it was. But I think the 1 is very stingy. I think what I thought you were going to say was the dice size, because it's a D6, isn't it? Or is it a D4?
I'm actually okay with the D6. I would rather they give you a D6 dice, but give you 2 of them to use in order to not step on the Battlemaster.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, because the Battlemaster, your dice, if you're a Battlemaster, your dice obviously scale. Like, by the time you're level 20, your maneuver dice are D12s.
And they start at D8 as well.
Yeah, they start straight at D8. Yeah, at level 3, it's really good.
Straight away, you're at a smaller dice size. Yeah. I'm fine with that again if you don't want to be giving people who aren't Battlemasters the D8.
I think that's the rationale, though, because like, imagine if you were playing in a party, right? One person takes, we'll say, one person takes a blood hunter and one person takes a fighter. They both hit level 3 at the same time. The fighter has spent 3 levels to get his superiority die and his maneuvers and all that. And then the blood hunter gets level 3, gets to turn into a werewolf and gets all of his blood curses, and then goes, oh, actually, next level I'm going to take a feat now, and I'm gonna be a battle master too.
Essentially, you're taking the core class ability of the Battlemaster and kind of, you don't want to steal their thunder. So I get that, and I'm fine with the D6s. It's just the 1 dice. It's again the 1 dice when you have 2 moves you can do. It just bugs me.
It's if you're going to do that, go like, okay, so you go like, you have 3 maneuvers and 2 dice. I think that would be a better way if you wanted to do it that way, in that you want to like force a choice, because that's what giving 1 dice and 2 options is. You're forcing a choice. You're like, you can use here or here. I think if you're going to do that, because I don't like that as design, but like, I think if you're going to do that, at least make it a better choice. So give 3 options and 2 dice.
I'm pretty much my kind of design philosophy with a lot of my homebrew stuff is that I would much rather that the ability that you can do is weaker, but you can do it more times. Because there's a certain thing where just the action of doing this special move is something that could be like really cool or really interesting. I would rather, even if it's less powerful, even if they were D4s, I would rather have an ability that I can do 3 times, each time it's a D4, as opposed to once that's a D10. Because once is like, you try it, you might miss or something, it's burnt, that's it, done. At least with the D4s, and maybe numbers wise, don't hold me to those numbers with the D4s and D10s, maybe a D8, I don't know. But I would much rather something that was that I could try multiple times, especially if it's something that relies on me hitting or something like that. That I would rather I get to use it more times, because again, then I get to do this cool move, even if it's not a very powerful move. It's a cool move more than once. Whereas it's just weird to me that like you can disarm an opponent literally wants a short rest, and then you forget how to disarm someone after that. It's so strange.
And the disarming thing is really I take particular issue with disarming attack, because you can go, I've disarmed you, and then if they go next, they just pick their weapon up and hit you with it. It should be more of a thing, like if it's a disarming attack, it should be like the movie style, where like the two guys are fencing with rapiers together, and he spins it round and goes whooshing, and sends it like flying across the room,
and it sticks into a raptor and ceiling.
I think if you're burning a spear, like admittedly, like you're gonna get the extra damage from the spear, but like if you're disarming someone, it shouldn't just drop at their feet. It should you should fling it like 10 feet away.
Yeah, it should be flung 10 or 15 feet away, and then they have to either draw another weapon or something.
They should potentially have to risk provoking an opportunity attack from you to get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, it's really unless you're disarming them to prevent them using a parry ability, there isn't really a whole lot else.
Yeah, or like if it's no, it's just not. I don't think, like, I think the disarming one is particularly underwhelming.
I say I take issue with the martial adept. I don't like its design, but the reason I give out about it, and it's the same reason I give out about a lot of stuff in D&D, is because I think it's cool and I want it to be better. I give out about the elemental monk the whole time. I fucking love Avatar. I love the flavor of the elemental monk, but I want it to be better. So that's the only reason I bring it up.
Yeah, cool. I think some of my favorites, just really to quickly rattle a few off. I am a big fan of Mage Slayer. Mage Slayer is really, really, really great, because a lot of the time, particularly if you're playing, because I play a lot of frontline, particularly if you're playing frontline, you're probably not going to be able to, unless you're very lucky when you're rolling your stats, have a high either int or wisdom, and those are the two saves that will really, really screw you. Charisma as well. Charisma depends on what you're playing, but like int, wisdom, charisma, your mental stats basically, you're probably going to be lower, and particularly when you get into late game, it's a risk being up that close, because someone can just go, Crown of Madness, now you're mine. I think with something like Mage Slayer, it gives you that advantage on saving throws with spells cast on you within 5 feet. So it's not just specific to like deck saves; it's everything, which is really, really good. And it also allows you to make that reactionary attack when someone does cast a spell against you. You can reaction attack, and if you hit, then your damage imposes disadvantage on concentration checks, which is super good. That's just like that's just a favorite.
Oh yeah, when you damage a creature concentration. Yes, it's just whenever you hit them, it's a disadvantage on con checks, which is like it's a polar opposite to Warcaster. So that's, but I actually think it's really, really good. Again, you play a lot of melee fighters and stuff like that. Obviously you play the Paladin, which does have magic, but a lot of melee fighters, most fighter subclasses, almost all barb subclasses, there's a few others you can pick from as well. They typically don't have a lot they can do magic wise, so when you come up against a magic user, you're kind of at a bit of a disadvantage. This is a great one to balance that out for you.
But it is just a natural playoff, like, because spellcasters, lots of damage but very fragile, like upfront fighters, some damage, very, very, like, a lot of time very tanky, hard to put down, but as a result, mental defense is not the best necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think as well then one from, because Tash has introduced a lot of really interesting ones I really, really liked, and one that I absolutely loved was Fey Touched. Fey Touched is so great. It's the one that gives you Misty Step.
Yeah. And it bumps up one of your stats too.
It does, yeah. And similarly as well, Shadow Touched. I think it also gives you a spell, doesn't it?
So Fey Touched one, actually it does. It's a first level spell, must be from Divination or Enchantment School of Magic, which I like. That's kind of cool.
And then if you do Shadow Touched is similar. It's Enchantment. I got it. I used that for an NPC and it was really cool. Like I just said, like, she had been through an area of dark magic and it left a mark on her, so now she's Shadow Touched and she had an archer on blade.
One thing I love about feats, just in general, as an overall kind of thing, is that you can take a few feats here and there, like Magic Initiate, Shadow Touch, a few other things, and you can give yourself, take Drow High Magic if you're playing a Dark Elf, and even though you don't have access, you can play like a Battle Master where you've no access to magic whatsoever, but then you can take these to offset that and not give yourself a lot of magic, but give yourself a handful of tricks you have up your sleeve.
You can do like almost superhero almost type concept,
where you have like a handful of powers, like almost.
Yeah, like a super soldier almost.
Yeah. I just like that they can fill out maybe a like, again, it's nice to play something like play an archer and then take sharpshooter because you're doubling down on one skill and you're really, really good at it. But it's also nice to be like, I'm just this kind of like fighter and stuff. I don't have a lot of magic, but if I take these two feats, I'll have a handful, like 3 or 4 spells I can cast, and as a result, then I feel like I can do a bit more. I have a few more tricks to play around with. So I like that as well.
Totally. And what I love about them as well is those are feats you could give to a character mid game as a DM. You could be like, this, like a story thing happens where, like, I don't know, they get sucked into the Feywild, or they get like sent barreling through, like Doctor Strange style, through all the realms, and the last one they pass through is Infernus. No, is it Infernus? Yeah. Avernus. Jesus Christ. And like the last one they get sent through is Avernus, and then on their way there, something just attaches itself to them as a way to get out. And when they do get it, and when they get sent back to the material plane, then they're left with this shadow touched thing. They've literally they could have like a handprint on their back from like a demon trying to escape with them, and like now they're shadow touched and they have these strange abilities. And you can spiral that off into a whole plotline.
Exactly. A quick question for you, not at all related to Feats. Would you look at the recording there and tell me what time we're at?
1 hour and 15. Just dinged 1 hour 15.
1:15. Okay. Just we should probably just wrap somewhat soon.
Cool.
What do you think of the racial feats?
I like a lot of them. I've actually given one of them to one of my players, who isn't of that race, as a thing, because she's a draconic lineage sorcerer. And as part of her first session at downtime, she wanted to explore her draconic lineage more. And I wrote in an adult dragon, a good aligned adult dragon NPC that was just lived secluded in this mountain range that she was able to track down from rumors and stuff. And that kind of taught her a bit more about like her draconic lineage and the history of dragons on this place. And as I kind of narrated it, like she kind of got more in touch with her own inner draconic powers. And as a result of that, I was like, because of this, you've now gained the dragon fear feat. That's
pretty cool. I was just looking at it here. Yeah, that's really, really cool. That's nice. I wouldn't have, because obviously these are all tied very specifically to one or a handful of races. I really like them. I think in a lot of ways, particularly, it doesn't really work if you're playing in a homebrew world necessarily. Mm-hmm. I know I tend to take the path less traveled when it comes to designing my races for my homebrew world. So not all of these would necessarily fit with the themes I go for with them. But if you're playing like standard D&D, I think it's really cool to be a dwarf and then pick Dwarven Fortitude, and as a result be the most dwarf you can possibly be. I really like doubling down on that, and I think it can make the character a lot richer. And it's also a good excuse if you like, as from a design perspective as well, I suppose, if you had a lot of ideas where you're like, I feel like dwarves should be able to do X, Y, and Z, but really I should only really give them X and Y because otherwise they'd be too OP. You can always save Z for a feat that will again fill out who they are. My one thing about the racial feats is that I wish they were more across the board. There's like stuff from Volo's guide, like lizard folk and Triton and Goliaths and Grung. Can't forget those Grung. That I wish they all had a racial feat of their own as well, and they don't. It's only the base ones, and I get why it's the base ones.
I'd imagine that might be expanded on with more books as well, though.
Well, I don't think it would be, because I was thinking about this earlier. I don't think they would do more racial feats. They'll probably do more
because
feats
of the origin thing.
Because of the origin thing, I think that they're going to probably try and steer away from. I don't see anything wrong with the feats we have here. I feel like, but I do feel like. I do feel like they will steer away from that, and they wouldn't. It would be. I feel like it would be a big misstep by Wizards if they came out tomorrow and said, "Here's a bunch of new racial feats, guys." After months of trying to steer away from the idea of certain things being racially tied to your character racially,
That's fair.
So I don't think they would. I would homebrew a couple maybe that are more suitable to my own world. But I feel like when they're not. Like Drow High Magic, for example, I think is a really cool one. That just gives you some spells that you as a Drow are likely to learn in a Drow society. It gives you Detect Magic, Levitate, Dispel Magic. I like that a lot. It's not tied inherently to your race, more so to your cultural upbringing, though, which is nice, I kind of like stuff like that. There is one here that I I think Jim Davis brought this up on WebDM once, and I think it's really, really funny. So you have the Bountiful Luck thing for halflings.
Oh, God.
Halflings get to reroll nat ones.
Yeah.
And then you have Bountiful Luck, which lets you, I believe, use that ability for other people, or you can help allies to reroll nat ones as a reaction or something. I have to double read it now, but there's that. And then if you took lucky as a feat, and then combine that with second chance, which is another one that lets you reroll attacks against you, and then play a diviner halfling wizard. So you have a couple of dice already that you can just drop in. I would love to play it. It'd be so stupid, but I'd love to play it and just like every time there's a dice rolled, you're like, change that, reroll that, do this, add this, disadvantage.
It would be so frustrating to play in a party with that character, though. Like, their turns would last so long. And I say this as a fighter who gets the action surge. Their turns would last so long.
Yeah, it's I just think it'd be a really, really funny character who just who just has all these abilities that if it lets you mess with dice, you take the ability, and you're constantly making people reroll or roll with disadvantage, or you have to reroll, or you're immune to nat ones, or all this stuff. I think it's so funny.
That's what I'm kind of trying to do with Lug at the moment, because I have the you know, if the person I hit someone else, they have disadvantage. But that's why I took the Storm Rune then, because then when that's active, I can be like, that attack roll is disadvantage. You can't make that save. You're going to sneak attack next. Attack roll on your advantage on your attack roll. like Mushu and Mulan. Advantage, disadvantage on you, on your cow, on your family.
That's that kind of battlefield control thing is really, really fun. Trying to think of anything else. I like Orcish Fury. I'll throw it out there. Don't want to talk about it.
Elven Prodigy is pretty good too.
Elven Prodigy is pretty good. What's it? I like Eldritch Adept, which gives you one invocation from the Warlock list. Specifically because this is purely mechanical, is the only reason I would take this. But I have one character named Balthazar who is a wizard illusionist. But I feel like he should be able to constantly, like Loki style, change his appearance. And I've not been able to get access to a spell like that, unless you have a hat of disguise or something like that. But aside from that, I just have him take this feat, and he can constantly cast Mask of Many Faces every single time. Constantly changes.
I love Mask of Many Faces. It's so great.
It's so great for roleplay, and it's simultaneously not at all overpowered, but also slightly overpowered.
Oh yeah. Like I took that. I even took that with Eru when I got leveled into Warlock, because I was like, it's just too fun. I can have a battle form now. Yeah, cool. I'm like golden winged armor now. Cool.
I actually never considered using it for that before. That's pretty. Yeah, you can make yourself look like a hell demon and charge on into a fight. Then
literally what Loki does, where he looks like normal Loki if he's fighting. He has the big horn helmet and stuff. Yeah. Do you like how both of us went big horns?
Yeah, I know. We should gift that. Just the two of us going, whoa.
Yeah, big horns in the Micflayers podcast.
But Martin.
Yes, Conor.
That's all the time we have for today.
Oh, it was a good one, though. It was a very good one, I feel like.
It was good. I wish we got to talk a little bit more about Feats. I'm cutting out some of the stuff I wanted to talk about, but last week our podcast went over way too long, and I had trouble with the compression and uploading it and stuff like that. So,
we can always do a part 2.
We can. The beauty of a podcast, Martin, is that there's always next episode.
Indeed. Well, hopefully. Yeah. But yeah, if you guys
until the man shuts us down.
But yeah, if you guys enjoyed our little chat about Feats here, or have any questions about Feats, or maybe what ones we if want us to revisit, maybe do like a list of our best ones or favorite ones for other kind of classes or other reasons, do let us know. Leave a comment below, or or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on the internet mostly on Twitter.
Okay.
I'm under @0.Conor, ZEROPOINTCONOR, 1 N, very important. And other than that, you can find me here on the Micflayers podcast every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time on YouTube and Spotify.
Yeah. Similarly, if you want to find me on the internet, you can mostly find me here on Micflayers. You can also find me on Twitter. So sorry it's over, which is boom right down there. Similar direction for the podcast's own Twitter handle, which is in the bottom right corner, along with our links for YouTube and Spotify. If you want to check us out there, you can also. I should really include it on our graphic, but I haven't yet. But you can also find us on Facebook under the Micflayers podcast.
We need to add that.
Yes, I will get onto that, I promise. But other than that, that's pretty much everywhere you can find me. Occasionally on Twitch, also at twitch.tv/Mart, which should be in the description. Cool. All right. So it'll be a goodbye from Conor.
Goodbye, folks.
And it's a goodbye from me, and we will see you next time for another episode of the Micflayers podcast. Bye-bye.